Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I'm 19 female, and I just started my freshman year of college a few months ago. I won't lie, it's been overwhelming. The academic pressure, adjusting to a new city, managing part-time work, social life, everything. But despite the chaos, I feel really lucky. My parents started saving for my college education since I was a toddler. It's not a massive fund or anything, but it's enough to cover most of my tuition, books, and a modest off-campus apartment, so I don't have to live in the overpriced dorms. The plan was always that this fund would help me get through undergrad with minimal debt, as long as I worked a little on the side. My parents aren't rich by any means. They're middle class, careful savers, and this fund was something they prioritized heavily, even when money was tight growing up. I'm incredibly grateful for it. I have a cousin named Bella, 17 female. She's my aunt and uncle's daughter, my mom's younger sister's kid. Growing up, Bella and I were fairly close, mostly because the adults kept saying we were like sisters. We'd hang out at family events, do sleepovers, and our birthdays are just 2 weeks apart. But we were never inseparable. We don't text much. We go to different schools, and we have different friend groups. Friendly, yes. Close? Not exactly. Bella's in her senior year of high school right now, and she's been talking non-stop about wanting to apply to the same university I'm currently attending. It's a state university, but not cheap, especially out of state, which Bella would be. She's smart and capable. I think she'll get in. The problem is, her parents didn't save anything for college. I don't know the full details of their finances, but from what I do know, they've always been more live-for-today types. They go on big family trips every summer, lease new cars every few years, and my aunt has a serious online shopping habit. There was never a 529 plan or savings account. My uncle once joked that student loans build character. Anyway, last weekend there was a big family get-together. One of those chaotic potluck cookouts where everyone brings something, kids run around the backyard, and the adults drink and talk too loud. Things were mostly fine until dinner. We were all sitting around eating when my aunt suddenly brought up college planning. She was talking about how excited Bella was to apply to my school, and then she kind of pivoted. She said something like, "Wouldn't it be amazing if the girls could go to college together?" Then added, "It's such a blessing that you guys saved so well for me. Maybe we could work something out where she and Bella share." At first I laughed. I genuinely thought it was a joke. But then she kept going. She started talking about how, in the old days, family supported family, and how it would be so meaningful if Bella had help. My uncle chimed in and said they were looking into financial aid, but it wouldn't cover everything. Then he just dropped it. He said they assumed my parents wouldn't mind sharing some of the college fund, since it was just sitting there. The worst part? My parents didn't say anything, not right away. My mom gave an awkward smile. My dad changed the subject. I thought, okay, maybe they're just being polite and we'll shut this down later. But then, later that night, after we got home, my parents pulled me aside. My mom looked nervous. My dad tried to be gentle. They said they had talked to my aunt and uncle about helping Bella with college, that they offered to give her a portion of my college fund. They hadn't told me before because they assumed I'd be okay with it. I just stood there, speechless. I asked how much they were offering. They said they hadn't finalized the number, but maybe a third. A third. That's almost an entire year of tuition and rent for me. Gone. I asked them how they could offer something that wasn't even theirs anymore. This fund was always mine, set aside for me. Why would they assume I'd be okay giving it away? My mom said Bella is family, that she's like a sister to me, and it wouldn't be fair if I had everything handed to me while Bella struggled. That I should feel lucky and want to pay it forward. I told them I worked hard to get into this school, that I'm juggling a job, my course load, and anxiety every single day. That just because they saved for me doesn't mean I owe that to someone else's kid, especially someone whose parents chose not to plan ahead. I told them it wasn't my responsibility to suffer, so Bella could have a more comfortable college experience. They didn't take it well. My dad told me I was being ungrateful. My mom said I was breaking their hearts, that they didn't raise me to be selfish. They weren't yelling, just giving me the disappointment treatment. You know the one. And at the end they said it's their money at the end of the day, and the decision is theirs to make. I was fuming. A few days later, Bella texted me. She said she was hurt, that she thought we were like sisters, that I was lucky to have support and she wasn't, and maybe I didn't care if she ended up taking on crushing debt. She told me she guessed I wasn't who she thought I was. Then came the messages from my aunt. She went ballistic, said I was spoiled, that I didn't earn the money, it was just given to me, that I had no empathy. She said the decent thing would be to offer help without anyone having to ask, that if the roles were reversed, Bella would gladly do the same. But the thing is, I don't believe that. I don't think Bella would give up her future for me. And honestly, I wouldn't expect her to. It's not her job to fix my problems, just like it's not mine to fix hers. Now, the entire family is in a cold war. Some people are taking my side. A few of my cousins texted me saying it was insane of them to ask, let alone expect. One of my uncles even told my mom he thought she was out of line. But the other side, they're acting like I've committed a crime. My aunt won't speak to me. Bella unfollowed me on everything. My parents are still sad and disappointed and keep saying things like, you'll understand when you're a parent. I've gone home twice since that dinner, and both times were stiff and awkward. I feel like I'm living in some kind of surreal parallel universe. I didn't ask to be handed a college fund. I know I'm lucky. I'm grateful. But now I feel like I'm being punished for not being generous enough, for not slicing up my future and handing a chunk to someone else because her parents didn't plan for theirs. Am I an a-hole for refusing to share my college fund with my cousin, even though my parents offered it to her without asking me first? Not the a-hole. Let's be real here. OP's cousin isn't entitled to a dime of OP's college fund. OP's parents didn't just save money, they saved opportunity, and it was always meant for OP. It's not OP's fault her parents prioritized vacations over planning for their child's future. The fact that OP's family is guilt-tripping OP for protecting what's rightfully hers is manipulative and disturbing. OP didn't create this problem. OP is just refusing to let them dump it on her back. And now let's hear community's opinion. This is financial and emotional blackmail disguised as family loyalty. Your parents offered up your future without even asking. That's a betrayal. And Bella? She's not a victim. She's participating in the pressure campaign. She unfollowed you because you wouldn't sacrifice yourself for her. If the roles were reversed, would she be willing to drain her own college fund for you? Doubtful. Not the a-hole. And good for you for standing your ground. College funds aren't community property. They're not a potluck dish to share at the next family barbecue. Your parents offering up your savings like a party favor is disgusting. And your aunt calling you spoiled while expecting free money for her daughter is peak hypocrisy. Keep your head high. This will blow over, and you'll be proud you stood up for yourself when no one else would. Not the a-hole times 1,000. I'll preface with the fact that therapy is an absolute given already, so I will be seeking that out. But in the meantime, need some advice to just process what to even say to a therapist when the time comes. Okay, so the title needs explanation because it is a complicated and nuanced emotional situation. Apologies in advance for rambling. I am still trying to make sense of the entire situation while grieving and just trying to get the pertinent details out for advice. My husband and I have been happily married for 3 years now. My husband had a son from a previous relationship before we got together. I've been in my stepson's life since he was 2 years old. He turned 6 years old this year and got along very well. My stepson's bio mom, BM, and I have never been friends in any capacity, but have always been cordial, respectful on the rare times we interacted and never had any issue with one another. My husband and bio mom are similarly cordial, respectful, and communicative around their son's needs, but not really friends beyond that. We pretty much adhered to a parallel parenting style and it worked fine. 4 weeks ago, my stepson tragically and very suddenly died from an infection. It has just been absolutely devastating for everyone. Bio mom is especially just wrecked. Her son was literally her entire life and purpose as a stay-at-home single mom. My grief cannot compare to the level I know she feels, and I do have compassion for that. My husband is, of course, also exceptionally distraught. I've been doing my best to be understanding in how they both need to grieve as parents. 2 days ago, my husband said he had something he needed to discuss with me. He explained that Biomom approached him with a request. She asked my husband to be her sperm donor for IUI or IVF, as she desperately wants to be a mom again and wants to conceive a child with the same partner that her son had. He basically made it clear it is something he is willing, even wanting, to do, but knows he needs to understand how I feel about it. Well, I don't know how exactly to communicate what I feel about it at this point, but the feelings are not good ones. I told him I needed some time to process this. My husband and I have been trying to have a child of our own for the past few months, so this is even more personally difficult for me to take in. I think I already know that I am not okay with my husband having another child with his ex, but I am thinking of suggesting we offer her financial support to seek out alternative fertility options that do not involve my husband's sperm, and quite honestly, do not involve 18 years of co-parenting. I'm not actually sure what Biomom and my husband are thinking regarding that in this scenario. Additionally, Biomom is 41 years old, so there is a high probability this whole situation would be a lot of money and time spent without any results. Overall, I think I'm just in shock here. I feel disrespected and angry, but I also understand it's not really just about me here, and that both of them are struggling to cope with this unimaginable grief. I would just appreciate some level advice from people outside this situation. Specifically advice on how I should convey that I am not on board with this, without making it a point of contention. Edit. I feel like this is happening to someone else. It is such a shocking and emotional wave after wave. Very difficult to process and think totally rationally. I honestly consider understanding and compassion to be personal strengths of mine. So I appreciate the replies acknowledging that I am not betraying that by being a firm no on facilitating this situation. I would just add that I am fortunate to be financially stable independently, and my husband and I had already set aside a fairly significant sum, specifically for child support. So even had this specific scenario not arisen, I feel obligated to offer some, if not all of that, to Biomother, since it was always intended to go to her and son. Yeah, this is a big no. There are so many emotions here, and during times of grief, they might not be thinking rationally. But having another child to replace the one you all lost is not the answer here. I think the first step is couples counseling with your husband, where you state that you aren't comfortable with him fathering a child with another woman while you are undergoing your own journey together. Best leave the bit about age viability out, and that you think it would impact your marriage. Then, the intricacies of co-parenting said child would also make you uncomfortable. It's terrible that you are all going through this, and I hope that you can heal in a healthy way. Oh, no. I'm so sorry for this loss for everyone involved. Your husband and his ex need major therapy. This loss is too fresh and raw to be thinking about this kind of decision. If all she wanted was to be a parent, there are a myriad of ways she could do that. It sounds like she is trying to recreate or replace the child she lost. That's a recipe for disaster for any child's emotional and mental health. This would be an absolutely not. Bad idea for everyone, literally everyone. Therapy. Question. If she is a stay-at-home single mom, who will be paying for the IVF? Your husband? And I assume then this comes from your joint marital finances? And thus takes away from the money which could be going towards your future child. Like, the entire situation is a whole basket of nope for a ton of reasons. But this is a big one. Who is paying for it? Unless she's sitting on a trust fund or inheritance or something. Update. I went ahead and took action on something I could control. Reached out to my therapist and got a reference for a couples counselor who is specifically experienced in dealing with grief around child loss. I was thankfully able to get us fit in for an appointment this week. After I returned home from work last night, my husband came into our room and immediately started sobbing and apologizing. He had spoken with his dad that day and had told him what Biomom had proposed. My father-in-law, bless him, had apparently really went off on the delusion of it. My husband and I had a long into-the-morning talk about it, and he was able to recognize and explain that what seemed like interest in Biomom's request was misplaced desires. He explained that he's been so focused and excited about the prospect of planning for a child with me for the last 4 months, and envisioning life as a father of 2, and it felt confusing to still be feeling that while dealing with the devastation of losing his son. Biomom's ask was a total shock for him too, and when you're face to face with someone grieving so deeply asking for your help, a solution, however absurd it is, it's not always as easy to think logically. He was receptive and seemed relieved to have the therapy appointment. So I am hopeful that it will be a start in unpacking these complicated and conflicting feelings. We agreed that we should ultimately end all contact with Biomom, but we'll still consider what sort of short-term, lump sum financial support makes sense with consult from a lawyer to keep it entirely copacetic. I realize some commenters find the financial part odd, but I just feel strongly about extending appropriate generosity in this transition, since we have the means to do so. We also agreed to hold off on any child planning until sufficient time and counseling takes place. I also just wanted to address the comments on stay-at-home single mom aspect in defense of Biomom. I only mentioned that part to say how entirely devoted she was to her son. She was the primary physical caregiver, and yes, the child support order was enough that it allowed her the option to stay home full-time and live comfortable, but not extravagantly. Is it the same decision I would make as a career-minded person? No. But that was her prerogative, and I do respect that. I really don't know much about Biomom as a person, but what I do know is that she was raising a kind, funny, and smart boy who was loved and cared for, and that was what ultimately mattered. I worry the ex has become too reliant on child support and doesn't believe she can provide for herself, or just plain doesn't want to do so, and that was a big part of her asking for another child from the same father, who has a good career and would provide ample child support. I don't agree with giving her any more compensation, but it's OP's money to waste. Hear me out. I'm prepared for downvotes. I think what Biomom asked of is extremely inappropriate, and no way should your husband go through with it. However, she is grieving terribly. She lost her child, and the only other person who loved that child as much as her is your husband. So, while I think that of course he shouldn't use his sperm for insemination, I don't think you both should lose contact with her. You co-parented with her. You shared love for this child. Maybe offer your support and establish boundaries. I've been dating a 47-year-old man who lives 3 hours away from me. I go to his city a couple of times a month for work. When we first met, I came into his city and paid for my own hotel and flight, etc. I didn't mind because it made me feel in control of my safety, etc. We had Zoomed for over a week and got to know each other. The following weekend, I had to travel for work, and I offered to come back for a night before my next stop for work. I paid for my hotel and flight. He never offered to help. He did buy me dinner, etc. though. Then, he offered to come to my city this past weekend. He asked if I wanted him to get a hotel. I told him I was pretty sure that my teenager would be with his dad while he was in town, so I felt it was okay for him to stay with me. Well, the day he was flying in, my son told me last minute that he was coming to my place because of various school logistics. I never have men at my house around my child, so I tried to make an excuse, and he said he had no choice because of XYZ. He said, "Mom, why can't I stay there?" So, of course, I said, "Okay, kiddo, no problem." Well, I felt bad, so I booked my new boyfriend a hotel room before he landed with my company rate. He seemed irked that this had happened and that he had to go to a hotel. He seemed to loosen up fairly quickly. However, he never even offered to pay me for the hotel room. I had also gotten nice tickets to a very high-profile comedy show, and again, he didn't offer to pay. After the first night, he told me that since my son was gone to school, he was going to check out of the hotel, and we worked from my place remotely all day. I was angry he was such a cheapskate, and also that he kept trying to kiss my neck while I was trying to work and answer calls and emails. I was polite, but I was truly annoyed. That festered, and by the time it was time to go to dinner, he was still napping and suggested he just eat some food in my fridge. Cheapskate again. Can't even take me to dinner. So after the comedy show last night, he hopped in my bed and wanted to have S. Truthfully, I was not feeling well. I also have my period. So I told him I'm sorry, but I can't do that since I have my period. And he said it didn't bother him. I'm not sleeping with him for the first time, or at all. I said I'd prefer just to go to sleep. He said okay. When we woke up this morning, I asked him after a little while when his flight was. He did not have one. He said he was going to stay another day. I couldn't believe he hadn't gotten the hint that I was not into him. I came up with a story that I had to travel for a client this evening, so I'm so sorry, but I've got to leave. He said, "Well, I should just stay here tonight and wait for you tomorrow, and we can hang out some more." I said, "Oh gosh, sorry, my son will be coming back." So he booked a flight to go home and I drove him to the airport. He texted about how he can't wait to see me this coming weekend, asked me to go there, and said he gets to do double on S since I was on my period this weekend. The only thing he did do was send me flowers after he left and said thanks. In total, his weekend here cost me $750 between his hotel, taxes, and the comedy show tickets. I'm truly angry. He texted me about how much he likes me tonight, and I wanted to throw the phone at the wall. I don't want to be mean or rude, but any advice on how to end this would be greatly appreciated. You are an adult woman and you can't have a conversation in advance with a 47-year-old man about splitting the cost? You can't put all the blame on him. It is up to you to assert your needs and opinions as well. And I'm saying this as a woman myself. Learn from it. Say you didn't feel a spark. Move on. Part way, but I would say in the future if you want to avoid this, then say what you mean. If you don't want to pay, then say that. But don't agree to everything and then get upset. Speak up if you have an issue. Don't let it sit and fester. Well, the hotel and tickets aren't really the issue. You made him move where he was staying at the last minute and paid. And you planned the comedy thing and already paid. Sure, he could have taken you out to dinner, but he also seems like a dude who wasn't trying to go out. He didn't have you pay for anything. You made those choices without any input or him choosing to do those things. But if you're not into him, be honest and end it. Background. In my country, it's still fairly common, especially in the more rural areas, that parents either outright gift or at least significantly help out all but one of their children with their own house. The one child who is not given or helped with a house inherits the original parental house and any other parental estate. It's also expected of that child to take care of the elderly parents too. My mom was the one who got the new house. My aunt is the one staying with grandparents. My father moved to our village upon marrying my mom. His parents gave him a car and covered a significant portion of the appliances for the new home. But the construction of the building and the land itself was from my maternal side. My mom died when I was 12. My father pretty much checked out of the marriage shortly after her diagnosis and began seeing my future stepmother. He moved her into the house about 2 months after the funeral and married her 4 months later. He said it was to give me a mother figure, which was BS. I was young, not stupid. I could see he pretty much gave up on my mom and my mom knew it too. I turned to my aunt as my mother figure when it came to things like periods, bras, sex, etc. I wasn't outright rude to stepmother, but I made it clear I wasn't going to come to her with those things. As I mentioned above, we lived in a village. There was a lot of side-eyeing on my father's actions, and it was clear that both my father and stepmother were viewed as trashy for their actions. No one was outright rude to them, but they were treated as strangers, not members of the community. It eventually got to them, and they sold the house and moved away. They didn't know at the time that the house was bought by a friend of my aunt, who immediately sold it to my aunt in turn. She kept the house with the intention to give it to me eventually. I accepted, of course. It's my childhood home, still in good condition. I have roots in the area and a lined-up job with a reasonable commute. I didn't see any downsides. My father said my acceptance is a slap in the face, considering he and his wife were run out of the house 10 years ago. That I can't expect them to regularly visit the site of their humiliation. That if I wanted a house, I should have asked him first. That a good daughter would think about how her parents would feel. Whatever his failings as a husband, he was a decent father to me. And maybe I should have thought about the fact that his memories of the house are worse than mine. I could always sell it again and buy another one with no emotional baggage. My aunt wouldn't mind. So, am I the a-hole for accepting and possibly keeping the house? Not the a-hole, considering he and his wife were run out of the house. That is a lie. They're not honest. They sold it. That if they wanted a house, I should have asked them first. Tell him, he buys you a second house and pays for it. You will consider not living in the house you already have. Anyway, keep the house. He does not need to visit if he does not like it. They wouldn't have sold it if the neighbors ever included them, so I can sort of see how the constant feeling of being left out could have made them feel unwanted. And in the interest of being fair, he offered to get me another house. It's just I always missed the area, and it just seems more practical to keep the house. But I know I have a tendency to consider the practical side of the matter above the emotional side, which can lead itself to a-hole behavior, even if unintentional, so that's why I'm here. Not the a-hole. Your father didn't like the consequences of his actions, so he's resorting to emotional manipulation. I wouldn't sell it. The house doesn't hold bad memories for you, just him. Let him learn to deal with it, just like you had to. Let him learn to deal with it, just like you had to after your mom died.